Here's a view of the front of our house with our geranium extravaganza. By the way, these geraniums are in front of our recently remodeled front porch. Check out the link to that. I'll put it above. But anyways, we love geraniums. They're fairly low maintenance for us in our neck of the woods in inland Southern California, and they don't need a ton of water. However, while these guys are pretty hardy, they do need to be trimmed up from time to time. As you can see, this geranium bush is basically overflowing over its home. So I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I'm going to trim up this bush, but I'm also going to give myself some cuttings to propagate with. So if you can get past the spider webs, I'm putting the camera down here at the ground level because that's where I'm going to trim up this particular geranium clump. Down here at ground level is where I want to do most of my cutting, most of my trimming, and that way I can cut back this clump a little bit, but also get some good cuttings. I need to reach really far in and get some good stalks, get some good cuttings. So I'm reaching in way back there to trim this geranium extravaganza back a little bit while also getting a nice selection of cuttings. And now I've got a bunch of cuttings. I threw them on the table. I'm just kind of going through to find out which cuttings are going to work best for propagating. You want to look for a cutting that's not too lengthy, and wherever there's a fully bloomed flower, you want to remove that end. You want to remove, like right here, there's a stalk with a fully bloomed flower, so we're going to remove that. We want to remove most of the leaves. You really only want 2 or 3 leaves on any given cutting. And these little, like beige-ish colored, like almost miniature leaves, those are called stipules. You want to peel those off. Whenever I'm doing this, I like to knock out about a half dozen or so cuttings, and that way I get a variety of really different lengths. Now this particular cutting I'm working on might be a hair too long, but I'll trim it down if I have to. And I'm going to just continue to remove any unnecessary leaves. Again, we only really want 2 or 3 leaves per cutting. This leaf just kind of broke right off. Better to cut them, but in this case it just kind of broke off. All right, now let's move to the top of this particular cutting. You'll see I've got a clump of buds right there. Those need to be removed as well. They can suck a lot of energy from the rest of the plant, preventing it from propagating or growing roots. So right here I have a pretty good cutting. This one's ready to go. And I've got a few more I need to trim up, like this guy right here. This needs to be trimmed down a little bit. And like I said, I'll have about a half dozen of these when all is said and done. And then the next thing I like to do is take these smaller translucent drinking cups. They're nice because you can see what the water level is at any given time. And I just cut them down a little bit. I don't need the full size of the cup for these cuttings that I'm putting together. And then I'll just place my cuttings in these cups. Sometimes I like to label them, R for red, W for white, that sort of thing. I know, really creative. And then I just fill the cups with water and we're ready to go. I don't use soil, I just use water when I'm beginning the propagation. Geraniums will sprout roots in straight water, no soil needed, and then once they get a good mix of roots going on, then you can move them into soil. And I just put a half dozen of these cups into a cupcake tin like you see here. And then I move all the plants to an area that gets a lot of daylight, preferably next to a window. These guys need a lot of daylight, a lot of sunlight to really get going. Now you can see I have some plants that I'm just starting, along with some plants that have been moved into soil that have been going for a couple of weeks. Here we're about 2 or 3 weeks in, and now I've got some guys that are growing some roots. That one's pretty good. This one here is pretty darn good. These guys are ready to transplant into soil, and like I said, this is after about maybe 2.5, 3 weeks. And as you can see, they were just setting in water the entire time. I use these biodegradable little planting cups like you see here. Not necessary, I just like these. I like the size. I think this is a 4-inch size. I put a little layer of topsoil on the bottom. Next, we put the plant on top of that layer of topsoil, and then we just fill the cup up with some pretty decent topsoil. You don't need top of the line, but get something that's somewhat rich, nutrient rich. And then, of course, I want to keep that soil moist at all times. Keeping the soil moist will really help your newly propagated plants to really get going. Here's another one. You can see this root system is pretty darn good. And we'll stick that in the little biodegradable 4-inch cup there, put some topsoil on it. Here's another one. And once I get them in the soil and keep them moist, I like to give them another 2 or 3 weeks at least in these little 4-inch cups before I move them into larger terracotta planting containers. So now I'll put these back next to the window where I had them before. They're not ready to go outside just yet. And as you can see, I've got some white and some pink geraniums ready to propagate back there. Here are some recently propagated red geraniums. They've been in these terracotta planters for about 2.5 months since they first propagated. So I want to say I cut them about maybe 3 months ago, and now I've had them outside for the most part. I had to bring them in a couple of times. We had some 105 and hotter days here in inland Southern California. I didn't want these guys to be out in that heat. Geraniums are hardy, but they're not that hardy. So on the hottest days, I did bring them inside, but I left them outside for the most part. And you can see they're growing really well. They're pretty well established. Ryder looks like he's a proud gardener in the back, but he had nothing to do with these. So anyway, I hope this video helped you and your geranium nursery. If it did, please subscribe to my other DIY videos, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.